welcome to a fresh edition of Policy Watch. For the next half an hour, we'll break down the most important economic developments of the week. But before we jump into the discussion with my guest this week, let's take a quick look at this week's top headlines. Government pushes FDI in insurance and pension sectors. Cabinet approval still pending. The Prime Minister's top economic advisor reiterates the need for cutting fuel subsidies. That's an RSTV exclusive. The national carrier posts major losses. Post-merger combined losses pegged at over 28,000 crore rupees. Those were the headlines. And my guest this week makes his first appearance on the show. Jagannathan Tunukuntla is Head of Research at SMC Capital. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure having you on Policy Watch for the first time. Time now for our first story of the week. In a fresh attempt to raise the FDI limit in insurance and pension sectors, the Finance Ministry has approved a 49% foreign direct investment cap in these sectors. The insurance and pension bills will now need cabinet approval before coming up in Parliament. The hope that reforms will make a comeback once P. Chidambaram took over the finance portfolio seems to be reviving, and the approval of 49% FDI in insurance and pension sectors seems to be the first logical step in that direction. Now, Jagan, this hope that when P. Chidambaram comes back and reforms will come back, do you see any does that theory hold any water? Do you see any change since Chidambaram took over?
He's a lot more goal-oriented and task-oriented, and keep hearing that he's pushing the finance ministry officials to work on the weekends as well, which used not to be the case. I think that itself is an indication that he's very serious about how things should move. Of course, ultimately the decisions will have to happen with the political consensus and the political support, and which he can't do alone. But to his part, I'm sure he's moving all the pieces well. And
there is a feeling in industry as well as markets that Chidambaram is the right man to pull us out of the fiscal mess we are in.
Absolutely. I think he was one of those guys who brought the dream budget. So that means there is a lot to talk about. I think if he can pull through one more successful turnaround, I think probably he will be termed as the second architecture of the reforms of India.
So he has his reputation precedes him. Now, going back to the whole cap of 49%, the plan was floated when Pranab Mukherjee was finance minister. Also, the insurance sector is seen widely as far as FDI is concerned, very crucial to the economy. Give us a sense, and the Policy Watch viewers a sense, of why insurance and pension to some extent is so critical to the economy.
It is absolutely critical because India has a huge population base, because both insurance and pension are related with the masses, in the sense the huge size of the population. If we can tap that resources well, I think that is very critical. And moreover, we are a very middle class and lower middle class kind of country. The social security schemes are not there, meaning thereby if there is any unemployment problem in any particular family, the whole family has to come under the problem. So now if there is any pension scheme, then naturally it will be bailed out. So considering the demographics of India and considering the economic stature of many middle class families, insurance and pension is very must.
Very well put, Jagan. I must say that the IRDA, the insurance regulator of the country, has stated that the insurance sector needs a capital infusion of over $12 billion for the next 5 years. What is the state of the insurance sector right now, if you could tell us, and how will it affect the sector in case this 49% cap is not passed by Parliament?
The major point about insurance is it's a long gestation business, meaning thereby it will take a decade at least for the companies to make any money. Meaning thereby one has to keep putting in money almost quarter after quarter to ensure that the operations will keep going on. Otherwise, the companies will not be in a position to meet the claims of the policyholders. That means it's almost a death of the insurance company. So Indian corporates, while they may be strong, but they don't have that kind of scale to really put in all the money on themselves. So now bringing in that insurance money from the outside is very logical, because the global players have played this insurance game for a century, whereas India is playing only for let's say last decade or so. So we have about a select few players, and then and also we don't have, IPO market is not completely open for these players because of the IRDA guidelines that should be profitable and that this. So very hardly any few insurance companies in India who are really in profits. So meaning thereby we need that foreign money to ensure the stability and to ensure that claims of the policyholders will be continuously made.
Let's elaborate on that a bit. It's important that you mention foreign players as well. Along with raising the FDI limit, the Insurance Amendment Bill, which is in Parliament, aims to strengthen regulation of the sector and allow foreign reinsurers to enter the Indian market. How will it strengthen the market? If you could explain for a bit, if foreign players have a larger role to play in the insurance sector.
I think the foreign players will bring in two things. One is, of course, money. The second is the experience.
The expertise as well.
Expertise. Because the Indian players, while some of them may be having money, but may not be having the same level of expertise and the wavelength, what is needed for insurance industry. And moreover, in India, kind of demographics, as just mentioned, that we can't take any chances with the insurance because many of the middle class families may peg their entire future with their insurance and the pension incomes, meaning thereby there is no chance of being complacent on that front. Right. So we need that expertise as well as money of the foreign players.
In your opinion, Jagan, in your personal opinion, if I could, do you see the 49% cap that has been suggested by the Finance Ministry? It'll go to Cabinet first. In case the Cabinet approves it, then it goes to Parliament. Do you see in the current political scenario where allies and foes and opposition are playing, havoc with the government's plan? Do you see the 49% cap passing muster at all?
Frankly speaking, it is a lot easier than retail. Because in retail, there is a lot more logical sense because of the India's, again, the nature of the trade that happens in India, SMEs and all that. But insurance, I don't think it is such a big problem because, frankly speaking, as a personal opinion, on the basis of the economics involved, I see India will be gaining a lot more than if at all anything if it loses. I can't think of any one meaningful loss that India will face by allowing FDI 49%.
So you're saying that multi-brand retail is a tough potato to crack, but this could be easier.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you.
The only difference is that in case of insurance, they need parliament support.
Exactly.
Whereas in case of retail, they don't need. That's the irony part of it.
And exactly. And that's even tougher. And this is not according to you. But let me ask you one more question on this. Mamata Banerjee is one of the most important allies of the government. Yesterday, she comes out and she gives a statement that she makes it very clear she'll oppose all FDI, be it retail, be it insurance, be it pension, be it aviation, what have you. With allies like that giving such statements, the scenario does look a little bleak, doesn't it?
I think, frankly speaking, after presidential elections, when the Congress party got its way in whichever mode and fashion, what it shows is that on the areas where they are absolutely determined, I think they can able to achieve that. I think the Mamata Banerjee factor is maybe just a shelter as an excuse for many of the non-performance of the governments in its own right, if I can say that. Because if they can able to get the president, show the same level of attachment, determination to the insurance, same level of attachment to the pension. So then when they could able to garner the support from other corners of the political spectrum, then why not on these subjects?
Right. But Mamata Banerjee is proving to be a thorn in the side of reforms. Do you think the government could perhaps, if Mamata Banerjee continues to play truant the allies that he has been, could they perhaps look at, say, other options like the Samajwadi Party, who, by the way, are also pretty much opposed to any FDI?
Point is, the stage has come to a point, it's barely 15-18 months away from the elections, I think logically speaking. So, frankly speaking, Congress has hardly anything to lose. I mean, whether elections came in, let's say, May 2014 or May 2013, of course, it will make a difference of 1 year, but logically, it's one and the same thing. Right. So, to that extent, they have nothing to lose. I think it's absolutely fine to play a gamble at this point.
Fair point. One last question in this particular story, slightly digressing from the point, coming back to P. Chidambaram, the Finance Minister. This is perhaps the first logical step towards reforms that are pending and have been, there's a clamor for reforms as well. Do you see any other pushes coming soon? Because Chidambaram is getting comfortable in North Block right now, and like you said, he's making bureaucrats and babus work weekends as well. Do you see any other pushes coming anytime soon?
I think he works hard. I mean, that's for sure. And moreover, he had seen the difference between Chidambaram of 2004 to 2007 and currently is that he had handled the finance ministry in the best time in terms of the markets, economy, and etc. etc.
The golden period.
The golden period. Yeah. Now I think it is test for his own qualification, his own caliber, and his own acumen, and whether he can able to handle this kind of slowdown in the decision. If he can, arguably he may be rated as again an excellent finance minister of India. I think he is just on the verge of making the history if he can able to pull through some successes. And there are some low-hanging fruits, mind you. There are some low-hanging fruits.
Such as?
I think despite these political issues, I think again said FDI in insurance is one of those things probably he can able to put through. And moreover, the diesel deregulation is one more subject. I think probably he can able to, because even that can be done without technically without support of the parliament. parliament. So that means he can do it just after the parliament.
Fair point. And that's our second story in Policy Watch this week. We'll go to the second story in just a bit. Of course, like you said, it'll be a test for Chidambaram right now. If he can push this through, and if this happens, perhaps the stage will be set for his legacy as finance minister as well. We'll take a small break right now, Jagan. We'll come back with the diesel story, which is an RSTV exclusive after the break. Don't go anywhere. Jagannatham Thunuguntla will stay with us after the break. We'll talk about what the Prime Minister's top economic advisor, Dr. Rangarajan, said about diesel subsidies being cut and also perhaps a diesel hike that could come soon. That's after the break. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching Policy Watch. Welcome back to Policy Watch. Our second story now. Losses incurred by oil marketing companies or OMCs on selling fuel below market prices have reached alarming levels, resulting in the ballooning of subsidies. The government has already spent 1.14 lakh crore rupees in the last fiscal year on fuel subsidies. The Prime Minister's top economic advisor also spoke about the need to cut subsidies. He spoke exclusively to RSTV. Take a look at this story.
High crude prices in the global market have hit the profitability of oil marketing companies as they are selling diesel, cooking gas and kerosene below cost price. Currently, the total cost incurred by OMCs on 1 litre of diesel is Rs 55.08, while the existing retail selling price is Rs 41.32, leading to a net under recovery of Rs 13.76 per litre. LPG is sold Rs 231 below cost price, while a litre of kerosene is sold Rs 28.54 below cost price. The losses incurred by the public sector oil marketing companies during the last 3 years are Rs 46,051 crore in 2009-2010, Rs 78,190 crores in 2010-2011 and Rs 1,38,541 crores in 2011-2012. The government made the price of petrol market determined in 2010. Since then, the public sector oil marketing companies are fixing the price of petrol periodically in line with the international crude oil prices. But diesel, LPG and kerosene are kept low artificially to shield poorer sections of society from the impact of higher prices. The Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council in its economic outlook for 2012-13 suggested that the government should raise diesel prices in one or more steps.
I think what we are suggesting is that one area where policy action will be required in order to contain the subsidies at the budgeted level will be the petroleum prices, both with respect to diesel as well as with respect to LPG.
The report said that priority consideration may be given to a suitable increase in the price of diesel, which is being sold at subsidized rates, to contain the fiscal deficit. With Athar Khan, Rahul Kapoor for Rajya Sabha TV.
There you go. Dr. Rangarajan there speaking to RSTV. Jagan, Dr. Rangarajan said cutting subsidies is a must even when the PMEAC report came out, the annual report came out. When we asked him whether or not he expected a diesel hike anytime soon, he said he expects it in 2 months' time. But by his own admission, Dr. Rangarajan also said that the PMEAC's role is to say what's important and what needs to be done. The decision lies with the government. Do you see the government biting the bullet anytime soon?
I think it would have been definitely taken decision, but unfortunately the monsoon this time has added one more unfortunate angle to the equation. So now I think because of this monsoon, probably the government need to play a little defensive. But having said that, I think probably a petrol hike, one more round of petrol hike as well as a diesel deregulation, maybe at least partial deregulation, maybe definitely on the cards. Because I think otherwise with the fiscal deficit, if it goes out of control, we will not get the foreign money. And without that rupee weakness and the GDP problems and the needed inflows, everything will go haywire.
You're saying a petrol hike as well as a diesel hike might be likely as well. But don't you think the government will be pushed into a corner again, considering the fact that there's a logjam in Parliament, the opposition doesn't want any work to get done, and they have the government on the ropes? Do you still see the government pushing through with the diesel hike?
I think probably I feel that they want this Parliament to just go silently without much confusion or anything like that. So they just want a period just after the elections, just after the Parliament, and maybe up to December, let's say 3-4 month period. Probably they will try to push them surprises. I think diesel regulation, at least partial deregulation, I strongly feel that they will announce.
For the benefit of Policy Watch viewers, let me just say, after freeing petrol, the government has been unable to free diesel prices because of various political considerations, not to mention heavy opposition from friends and foes alike. Tell us briefly, for the benefit of our viewers, how important is an immediate hike in diesel prices? And Dr. Rangarajan says 2 months. What's your prediction?
Yeah, because I think as in the last budget itself, the 2% of the GDP, that cap was fixed for the subsidies. I think we have to start respecting our own targets. Otherwise, how will the global players will respect us? I mean, if we don't respect our own things, and how? So if the 2% target has to be met, then it is probably is a high time. And moreover, to fill that fiscal deficit, even the 30,000 crores of divestment target, even the government is finding it very difficult to pull through that also. Our last 2 years missed, and already we are into 8th month and of this this year. But not even a single rupee of divestment proceeds didn't come. All in all, what I'm trying to say is that the fiscal management is completely out of equation at this moment. They're just playing a survival game, not the revival mode.
Absolutely. And also, you talked about divestment as well. They have no big ticket issues this year around. Last time they had ONGC, they had Coal India. This time they're all small scripts.
Yeah, and moreover, it is very ad hoc approach. I think divestment, somehow there was no proper homework and there was no proper game plan. If let's say if plan A didn't work, what is the plan B? If plan B didn't work, plan C. There is no proper approach. It is ad hoc, depending on the market mood and sentiment. They are behaving more like a retailer and who would speculate with the market. If the divestment is going more like a speculation than an organized approach.
Jagan, the subsidy burden on the government is way beyond what is comfortable level, if you could call it that. Apart from cutting subsidies, which is extremely important, like you mentioned, and as the top economic advisor has mentioned as well, do you see any other major steps that the government could look at to control the fisc?
I think from the fiscal management point of view, there are many things, just that they have to implement it. I think there is no shortage in terms of the ideas, there is no shortage in terms of the brains. I think everybody knows, both the opposition parties as well as the ruling party, just that there is no consensus that process is going on. I think in the urgency of political agenda, somewhere that India as a concept and India growth as a concept being completely left out.
But could you elaborate what could be those options if they can't touch subsidies, which they have to by in any chance, but in case they can't, what are the other options in front of the government?
I think subsidies, as you rightly said, that if not fully, I think at least partially that has to be kept. That is the top priority agenda, because that is where the huge money that can be blocked. I think the divestment is one more angle. I think they have to come out, and moreover, whenever they come out with this divestment, they have to choose those stocks which will be market favor kind of stocks. They should not get into SAIL, NTPC, because which are dull stocks. Whereas Coal India, so maybe government already holds 90%. What if government holds only 75% tomorrow? Go for a 15% dilution in Coal India. Coal India, everybody made money, because naturally there will be good attachment from the investor's point of view.
Right.
I think they have to be very good in terms of selection of the stocks as well as for divestment.
One last question on this story. Let me put you on the spot. If a diesel hike does come, what range do you see the government hiking price?
I think to start with, I think even a 1 rupee hike may give an indicative statement in the global circles that Indian government is serious about things. I think 1 rupee may not make such a big difference in the whole scheme of things, but it will send a message they mean it.
And that they're serious about it.
Absolutely.
Fair point, Jagan. We'll take another small break right now. We'll come back with a third story after that. Keep watching Policy Watch. We'll be right back in just a bit. Welcome back. Now, Air India's losses have been constantly mounting since the 5-year-old merger with Indian Airlines, and the collective losses from 2007-8 to 2011-12 are now 28,046 crores. The Aviation Ministry told Parliament on Tuesday. Aviation Minister Ajit Singh told the upper house of parliament that only 16 of the 84 routes that Indian Airlines plies on met their total costs in the April-June 2012 period. 9 services did not even meet their fuel costs. A task force headed by a joint secretary of the ministry has been constituted to examine route economics and to find ways and means to rationalize the routes so as to make the operations more cost effective. Policy Watch spoke to aviation expert Sanat Kaul on the issue. Take a look.
Air India's losses have been constantly mounting for the last 5 years. And to talk more on this, I have with me Mr. Sanat Kaul, Chairman, International Foundation for Aviation and Development. Welcome to Policy Watch, sir. Post-merger, Indian Airlines and Air India, they have registered a collective loss of over rupees 28,000 crores. Even after 2 separate bailouts, the national carrier is not turning around. What do you think are the reasons for this?
Well, I personally feel that a turnaround of an airline has to be done with a lot of determination and not just in a normal way. Just by funding the airline is not enough. We have 2 cases in point of airlines abroad. One is Japan Airlines, which was in a much heavier debt, and they got a very, very senior industrialist who was very good at this job, and he turned it around in about a year's time, and it's now back in profits. It went into kind of liquidation, whatever they have their legal terminology, which I don't know. And then there was Sri Lankan airline, which was handed over to Emirates in the sense that they bought some equity, they turned it around, they used it, and now they have returned it back to Sri Lankan government. It's a government-run airline now. So these are 2 examples. We also have the case of Satyam in India, where which is not an airline, but it was turned around. So if there was a determination, perhaps things could have worked, but the merger itself was quite a failure. It never took place, though it was technically merged on paper.
Only 16 out of 184 routes were able to meet their total cost. However, 9 didn't even meet their fuel cost. Do you think downsizing or slashing will help?
Well, you might well close down the airline if this is the case. The main thing is that you have to make routes more viable. And it's not that all these routes are not viable. Other airlines are making profit on that. So there is something wrong which needs to be corrected in Air India. Therefore, what I would like to say is that the system in Air India which is there is not adequate to meet the competition, and therefore they are losing on routes, not because the routes themselves are bad.
The national carrier will introduce voluntary retirement scheme for non-licensed personnel with experience over 15 years. Do you think this will help, if at all it will?
Well, voluntary retirement scheme is one way of reducing the mass of people. But what happens in this case is that very often the good workers leave. So you are left with the people who are the deadwood anyhow. So that is the danger of voluntary retirement scheme. That's all I can say.
Where do you see the national carrier going from here? And do you think privatizing Air India is a good option?
Well, at present, with the way we've been watching for the last, how many now, it started around 2006 or so, so it's been about more than 6-7 years. Merger is going on for about 5 years plus. It doesn't seem to be moving anywhere. Therefore, yes, privatization can be taken care of if there's a lot of financial engineering done. If good financial people are put to look into it, and then good managers to run the thing, I think privatization is still an option open.
Thank you so much, sir. That was Mr. Sanat Kaul saying that routes should be made more viable, and that's all I have for now. Back to you in the studio.
Rahul Kapoor there talking to Sanat Kaul. Just one quick reaction from you. Privatization is an option that's been bandied about by experts as well. Do you think it's a good idea to privatize Air India? And is that the only way to dig it out the hole it is in right now?
No, not necessarily. I think because Air India has other ambitions as well, because of the diplomacy reasons, they have to keep running some of the aviation routes, which, despite knowing the fact that they will never become profitable, just to ensure the relationship with those countries and all that. If you do privatization, the private player will immediately first day they will close down all those things. I think to that extent, from the diplomacy point of view, it may not be so easy. And moreover, many of the private players are also not making money. Not only the Maharaja of aviation, but also King of aviation is not making money.
The King king of good times has gone into troubled times, if I can call it that. One last question to wrap up the show, Jagan. In hindsight, was the merger or the way the merger was handled a mistake?
I think even independently both were having trouble. So I think if A is having problem, B is having problem, A plus B will not suddenly make a pretty picture. So I think the troubles will continue. I think that is same thing is happening. I think moreover, globally the history shows 95% of mergers fail to deliver the promises that were made before the merger.
Right. On that note, Jagan, we'll have to end the show. Thank you so much, Jagannathan Tunguntla, for joining us on Policy Watch. Of course, our first story this week on Policy Watch was the FDI push by the Finance Ministry in insurance and pension sectors. Remember, Cabinet still needs to approve those two proposals, and Parliament also needs to approve that so that the 49% cap can actually be implemented. Remember, in retail, the government doesn't need the Parliament's help, but in these two particularly crucial sectors, the government does need the Parliament's help. Let's see and wait and watch what happens there. Our second story this week was the Prime Minister's top economic advisor, C. Rangarajan, saying that cutting subsidies is the only way to go. Of course, a diesel hike, he said, perhaps is imminent. We'll have to wait and watch whether or not that 2-month period that he mentioned, whether or not there is a diesel hike or not. The last story, the third story on Policy Watch this week was the post-merger losses of over 28,000 crore on Air India and airlines. Like Jagannathan also said, and our other guest, Anat Kaul, said, the management, of course, needs to pull its socks up. And in hindsight, the merger perhaps was a mistake, but all is not over for the Maharaja. A push by the government is needed. If it's managed properly, perhaps we can save our national carrier. Jagan, thank you so much for joining us in Policy Watch. That's all the time we have this week. Till next week when we get you another edition of Policy Watch. Athar Khan saying goodbye and thank you.